She's not selling that fast.
I bet they don't allow them in town.
Online marketing. All right, sorry.
Hold on.
The starters gotta get it. They're not open. If I would have an ordinance against that.
I'm going to make 4 days. Great.
Okay. Where we at? I'm waiting for her to get our line.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. Okay, possible action on items discussed in closed session. Consideration of an action on employing a junior high volleyball coach.
I make a motion to accept, or the recommendation of Nicole Tyson as junior high volleyball coach.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there a motion to hire a high school football coach, Chris Lackner? Oh.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hiring of a junior high school ed teacher, Derek Reese.
Reese.
It's
Reese.
Reese. See, my friend is spelled that way and it's Reese, so I'll make motion. Motion to hire,
Second it.
motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Consideration of an action on accepting resignation of PK-12 principal.
I'll make a motion to reluctantly accept.
Second.
With regrets. Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Opposed. Okay. Accepted. Okay. Now up to administrators report.
Okay, correspondence had numerous correspondence from staff members thanking the board for the COVID-19 compensation for last year. Greatly appreciated. We were not the only district. There are a lot of districts that did the same thing. So that was very well thought out and a great gesture. Committee updates. We do need to have a P&N committee to work on our bus contract. I have some information I will be sharing. I'll share it to the whole board, but it'll be for the P&N. So whenever we can get to that, I don't believe it's super urgent, like we have to do it next week, but we should try to do it at least before the start of the school year.
We've got a contract in place.
There's a contract in place, yes, and there's a 2-year disclaimer on that, but and then the extracurricular contract, I've updated some of those that we share with other schools, so I can share that out too, to have you look at it and see what I did there. Try to make it somewhat, not uniform, but closer to uniform. It'd be hard to do a 150% increase in some of those. I tried to break it into 30% and then the next year and so on. And buildings and grounds, it's not urgent, but we do remember we had donors for the scoreboards and the signs, and those are all ordered. Whenever they get in, our crew will install them. So I'm really excited about that. Got a pretty good deal on the signs, I think. Rather than going through Nevco, RBS is doing it, and I think it will look great. So thank you to those donors. But if you recall, we had a 5th donor, and they are willing to purchase backboards for the pit. I've contacted a couple people. It would be about the same donation. The thing is, the one person I talked to, who actually was the person I worked with for the winches through Toby, and he's like, well, what do you need new backboards for? I knew you could get new rims, but you could do new pads. So his question was, do we need to look at changing the structure? That would be a lot more expensive, because the structure in the old gym comes out from the wall, and they were designed for the old fan-shaped backboards. And so what they have is a retrofit kit on them, bars, and all we would be doing is swapping apples for apples. But what I failed to mention to him is that we could move those glass backboards to the side. So I actually got a better quote from Badger Sporting Goods. So we, just a quick meeting, to talk about that would be great. Stormwater project, they're breaking ground Monday. So, that's kind of exciting.
We're gonna shut down the back parking lot.
We're gonna shut down whatever we have to, yeah, they're gonna shut it down. I don't think they'll need the whole parking lot, we may actually have to use the entrance as an exit. We'll just have to wait and see, I would assume that's what they're gonna do. Obviously, the back of the ag shop will be off limits. So that's kind of cool. And Riley's were in, they're just doing some preliminary work to get more of the Prolon system hooked up. I did mention that, I think after our meeting in April to Tom, that air conditioning was a priority. He said we'd do our best, so. We'll see. Everybody's busy.
Some building materials are.
Correct.
So.
COVID-19
I'm
updates.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I have one other issue that came up that may be more.
Okay.
At least given our recent resignation, there's at least two, Amber and I will not be here for August. We had talked about that.
Oh, yes,
before, not
the state
being
fair.
here. We don't normally need a lot of people at that one.
Correct.
Do we think that we're gonna have a special meeting if we end up filling that position, or with that one, you may need a different date, so I don't,
Okay.
just so everybody's
Yeah,
aware
we
of
may
that.
need to do a different.
Well, Lee and I will communicate about that. If we have to do a special meeting, we'll get a notice out. I think technically by statute, we only need to give 2 hours notice.
Correct.
That's not ideal. 24 hours is ideal. But we'll try to do that. Yes, I remember that. COVID-19 updates, I shared with you the CDC information. I had a superintendent's meeting up at CISA 3, and they started talking about, there was a person from DPI, and they started talking about COVID protocols in the fall, and I almost crawled underneath the table. I believe the look I gave was, are you serious?
Yeah, but they're calling from a Madison standpoint.
Well, but I know, but there's a lot of other issues. Most of the superintendents, all but one, said, we're not gonna require masks. They're recommending it for 11 and under because there's no vaccine available. Well, that's the population we don't want to do the most with. They're recommending the 3-foot social distance. I think we can try to do that. I think because everybody 12 and up can get the vaccine, I think I think we can just go at it.
From the public health perspective, and I gotta throw this in here, there is a big push to educate to get a higher percentage of 12 and up vaccinated. And if any, the metrics for Lafayette County, we have a very low percentage of the 12 and up population vaccinated in all of our schools. Just gotta throw that in.
So we're going to need a return to school meeting sometime before the return to school
Yeah.
to update some of these things. Here's the sticker, and this will be important for us. Vaccinated versus unvaccinated. We can ask at registration if a child is vaccinated, and we can ask for proof of that vaccination. And if the parent does not provide proof, they are assumed unvaccinated. So in a quarantine, a close contact situation, they would be treated as unvaccinated, therefore they would have to quarantine. We can choose if we want to use the 7 and 10-day quarantine, or if we want to use the 14-day quarantine. The 7-day quarantine is after day 5, you can get a test, and if you're negative, you can come back to school after day 7. But you still have to watch your symptoms until the 14th day. If you don't get a test and you don't have any more symptoms, you come back after day 10, I believe. But you still have to watch your symptoms and stay isolated by rule. So if you're, especially I'm thinking of the classroom, yeah, you can come back at day 7, but we still have to isolate you. Social distance, that's their guideline. Athletes, let's say we're playing a game against someone and their team has a positive case. We have 12 kids on the basketball team. 10 of them aren't vaccinated. I know it'll be, I hope it's higher that are vaccinated, but those 10 would have to quarantine. 2 wouldn't have to. That's what they're saying.
It's not a mandate, it's what the recommendation is.
Right, but it was brought up that that will cause teams not to play.
If the school shuts down, but WIA hasn't come up with their guidelines yet.
But the DPI said that, and DHS doesn't care what the WIA comes out with, if that's what they're gonna go with. Don't kill the messenger.
No, it's-
It's just, it's not over. The person that from DPI said that their sources are saying this is a 10-year deal, up to 10 years.
Not what we want to hear, but reality is reality.
I think the important part for us is we're doing some great things with our HVAC. We're updating our filtration. We're still gonna clean. We're still gonna emphasize social distancing at 3 feet. We're still gonna emphasize hand washing. We're still gonna emphasize stay home if you're sick. But I think there's a lot of other things we gotta work out. And then lastly, because part of the ARPA plan is to provide free testing in schools, I filled out a survey for the DPI, DHS, to allow free testing in our school. We don't have to allow it, but there are 4 options, and the option I chose, and we're not held to it, is the only time we would even ask for free testing with parent permission would be if a child was symptomatic, and then we would ask the parent. You could do random testing, you could do everyday, daily testing of every student. I'm like, no way, they're running me out of town if I check that. So, but if they had symptoms and refused to test, then they would have to go home and it'd be a quarantine situation. We're still dealing with that. And I don't know if there's a way around that or if it's worth a way around it. But the transmission rate in our school was 0.00, I think. And out of all the superintendents there was only one superintendent that said, well, we did have transmission at school. The rest of us did.
As a county, the metrics are very, very low.
So
It's really good.
again, we're gonna have to meet and make some decisions.
That, the return to school, that committee that we had.
Yeah, with our parents and
Parents.
administration and board members and teachers, try to convene the same people would be a lot easier. I'd like to shoot for the 2nd or 3rd week in August. I mean, that'd be the latest.
So we have to approve whatever.
Yeah, we would have to, well, yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah,
do
last
a-
time.
We did a plan and then, the
So we
committee
could
made
do
a
it.
plan and then that plan came to school board.
Yeah, we can do it the first week of August. It'd probably be better. I don't know if we can convene everybody before that. It's hard to do in the summer. People like to have a life.
We probably
There are
want
some
to get that date sent out then to everybody on the committee.
So,
Coming up quick.
So writing myself a note, I'll shoot out to all those people, just what dates and times might work. And I believe,
I was on.
I was on it as a parent.
I was on it as.
I think I was a parent.
and I shared the CDC link with all of you. I think I'll just link that to the people that are on the committee too. I mean, it's not private information. I try not to fill up people's inboxes too much, because mine overflows. 2021 budget year, we did, the auditors were here today. They'll be here again tomorrow. We did end up finding out that in one of our calculations for potentially putting money into our Fund 46, the auditors Karen actually had the foresight to call the auditors last week in June and reminded us that we still had to pay for July and August insurance premiums,
Oh, that wasn't
which is pretty significant.
huge.
So what we did, and he also reminded us that we have until July 30th to put money into Fund 46. So our initial deposit was $160,000 though on June 30th. So then when we get to near the end of July, and after talking to the auditor tomorrow, we may end up putting more in there. Okay. Last is the July 1 general school aid, and I actually have one other thing to add that if you recall at the last meeting, I had predicted that our July certified aid would go down because of our transfer into fund balance the year before. Well, with the governor's budget, it actually went up $83,000. Now, that's an estimate. I asked the auditor today, is it possible that they don't know about our transfer into fund balance? He said, well, I think they would have all that information, but maybe they're waiting for the full audit information. They don't have that. So I'm crossing my fingers that it actually is that.
Great.
You did hear that the governor did sign the budget. It's fairly bipartisan. I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I am worried for 2 years, 3 years down the road when the federal funding runs out, how we're going to deal with that. But if this aid certification comes through, that will just mean that the taxes, the school portion of the levy would be lower. And lastly, the governor did use his veto pen in a couple areas, and one was high cost of transportation aid. He didn't quite set it at what his original budget was, but we do qualify for some under this. Currently, our cost per pupil for transportation is $570, which you would think is a lot, and it's not. There are some districts out there that are in the 900s. We have 3.6 students per square mile. And our 2021-2022, if it comes to fruition, would net the district $367 this year.
I was hoping that you had a few more zeros on that. I got really excited there for a second. Yes.
Well, I looked at it, and looked at it, and looked at it, I was like, serious? Then I started comparing some others, and you know, it looks like the 560 is like the cutoff per pupil. So if you're above that, you get more aid. But if it's in the budget, it's in there for 2 years, and you know, cost of transportation goes up. So that I would foresee a little bit more than $367 in the second year of the biennial budget. But I got you to smile a little bit.
You sold it well.
I was saying, I'm looking at schools above us and below us, I'm like, 35,000. I'm like, yeah. Okay, better than nothing, but that's all I have, Madam President.
Okay. All right, your recommendations for future agenda items. Anybody have any suggestions?
Probably want to mention the interview.
Well, yeah,
I mean, we should mention
We
that.
mentioned publicly that
we will be interviewing for PK-12 principal next week. Next Wednesday, yeah.
No, it's a close session. Oh, we'll wait on that. We'll wait on that.
Oh,
Okay.
Updates on routine things, budgets, and
What's that?
That's that.
trying to figure anything else.
Yeah,
I think we got 3 votes here.
we'll have more from the auditor. We should have the preliminary
After the
audit.
audit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look back at last year's agenda.
Any
You got
other things?
handbooks to
I was
approve.
gonna say, we
Yeah, we gotta go over our regular.
I'll have all that ready.
Yeah. Next meeting will be,
Well, and like, it was brought up, we may have to hold it earlier. Or
yeah, we'll
to have
change it
full
because of
participation.
other schedules.
All right.
To be determined, any motion to
Move
adjourn?
Close, sorry.
Second.
Motion is seconded, roll call, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,